Hey YouTube, Carrots Week here, bringing you all my Penguin Yu-Gi-Oh deck profile for post Battles of Legend Armageddon. Been wanting to just work on a type of Penguin deck ever since I saw the release of Penguin Torpedo in the newest Battles of Legend booster set. It's a really awesome deck. I can't wait till we get the rest of the Penguin support in Phantom Rage, which I believe comes out in the TCG sometime in November, so I'll definitely be looking forward to that. But the whole focus of the Penguin deck basically goes off of all the other Penguin cards we've had up to this point. I definitely do think this is a deck that's taken 20 years in the making to fully be at power, and we're just gonna get more and more support to definitely make it a true playable deck. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. Now, the actual playstyle of the Penguins are still returning cards on your opponent's field back to their hand when you flip up your Penguins, and Penguin Torpedo has sort of a different playstyle but still very helpful for the deck. So I run 3 Penguin Torpedo. This card can attack directly. When this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you can target one level 6 or lower monster your opponent controls, take control of it until the end phase, but its effects are negated and it cannot declare an attack. While you control it, you can only use this effect of Penguin Torpedo once per turn, and at the end of the damage step of this card attack, destroy this card. So it's definitely one of the weaker Penguin cards, but still being able to take your opponent's resources makes it for a pretty good card for sure. You are limited to level 6 or lower, but just depending on the type of monster your opponent may have and just how easy it is to take that monster, you have some of your other Penguins set up for the return effects, and then this Penguin sets up for taking your opponent's resources to use for your own plays. So you definitely want to run 3 of this card. It helps for all of that, and just being able to do that little damage to your opponent, if you're neck and neck on that game, that little damage can definitely make a difference for sure. For some of the older Penguin support, I am running 3 Nightmare Penguin. When this card is flipped face up, return 1 card on your opponent's side of the field to the owner's hand. As long as that card remains face up on the field, increase the attack of all water monsters on your side of the field by 200 points. So this card is definitely a power booster for the Penguins, but having this return card effect, just like the next card in the deck, definitely helps for the return power, because just being able to return your opponent's extra deck monsters makes it all the better, because your opponent can invest in those monsters or just a setup they have on the field, and then you can easily return those cards back to their hand using all the different Penguins, and using these Penguins and then other Penguins for the setup makes it that much easier to use. So 3 Nightmare Penguin just sitting on this card with its attack boost as well when it gains all of those stats for your Penguins helps, especially, and being an 1800 defense makes it that harder for some of your opponent's monsters to get over this card also. And probably one of my favorite Penguins in the deck. Definitely when I was younger, this was always in all of my different decks that I used just for how good it was, and that is Penguin Soldier. Flip, you can target up to 2 monsters on the field, return those targets to the hand. So while Nightmare Penguin returns cards, you can use Penguin Soldier to return monsters easily. It is a flip effect, so remember that. So you just have that option to return those monsters, depending on what they are, back to the hand after your opponent attacks into Penguin Soldier. This was always the biggest annoyance when I went up against it on some of the older Yu-Gi-Oh video games, but that good of a card working with all the other different Penguin cards in the deck. So 3 of this along with Nightmare Penguin at least shows you have your engine to get those return to hands back to your opponent, a guarantee each game. And I also run 3 Note Penguin. During either player's turn, when an effect of a Penguin monster is activated, special summon this card from your graveyard. You can only use this effect of Note Penguin once per turn. If a card be returned from the field to the hand by the effect of a Penguin card, banish it instead. So this setup with Note Penguin is very important for the return effects of both Penguin Soldier and Nightmare Penguin. Being able to banish them instead means you're getting rid of resources your opponent can say, oh, it was returned to my hand, but instead it's banished, meaning they're not going to get that card back to the hand. They're going to have to deal with the fact that Note Penguin is just basically saying what its name was meant to say, and that is nope, you're not getting that card. With me on the field, you are going to have that card be banished, and the more cards you're going to potentially attack into and flip up, I'm going to return more and more cards to your hand. So 3 Note Penguin at least guarantees that setup that you'll have an early game in the graveyard as well to special summon back onto the field. And I also run 3 Puny Penguin. When this card is sent from the field to the graveyard after being flipped face up, target 1 Penguin monster in your graveyard except Puny Penguin. Special summon that target in face up attack position or face down defense position. So depending on what you want, you can go for the Note Penguin having the higher attack stat. It would be perfect in attack position, or Penguin Soldier or Nightmare Penguin in face down defense position to set up for that play also. Depending on what you also may have on the field, depends on what you want to go for with your Puny Penguin play. So just being able to have that flip face up then have that more setup when it leaves the field, makes it all the better. And all of these play sets for the Penguins are what you want to go for with your plays, so you always have options available to you also. And another one of the new Penguin support, I am running 3, which sadly I only have 2. So for now we're replacing in a Bolt Penguin just as a proxy spot with it. But that is Glacial Beast Polar Penguin. It's one of the new Glacial Beasts, but it does count as a Penguin, so that we're running it in the deck. If this card is special summon, you can target 1 monster your opponent controls, return it to the hand. If this card on the field is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can target 1 card your opponent controls, return it to the hand. You can only use 1 Glacial Beast Polar Penguin effect per turn, and only once that turn. But that easy special summon and the fact that Glacial Beast Polar Penguin is a tuner makes it all the stronger, especially because then you can set up those plays and also have some room with all the different level penguins in our deck for synchro summons also. So that is very useful for sure. And then we also have one of the new Glacial Beast synchros that we're running in the deck, but that easy return to hand means it was basically meant for the penguin plays because it bounces the other cards, which can work very well with Note Penguin also. And one of the more powerhouse penguins in the deck, once again, we have that Bolt Penguin spot just for the last copy, and that is the Great Emperor Penguin. I was even debating if I wanted to run more than 2 of this in the deck, but with this card, it just has so much quick setup as long as you have that, option for getting this card out onto the field faster. You contribute this card to special summon up to 2 penguin monsters from your deck, except for the Great Emperor Penguin. So with this tribute, you can go for Note Penguin, and then just one of your other penguins, which we have other spells and support to set up on the field, but just going for any of these monsters. You can even summon Penguin Torpedo onto the field and then attack your opponent directly and take their card, having Note Penguin set up for that as well. If you have other flippers on the field, then you can also go for the play to return your opponent's hands after summoning Note Penguin on the field. And I'm now just realizing that flipper, and I really do hate myself for not realizing that sooner or before I made this deck profile, but that is quite hilarious, and I am trying to resist not hitting my hand on my head with a facepalm, but I will refrain from doing so until the end of the deck profile. But that is it for the monsters. I wanted to go full penguin with this deck. That is the full power of this deck. So relying on all the different penguin monsters for this profile means that I will achieve full power when I use this deck. So for these spells, I am running 3 Book of Moon. Now this, I don't normally run Book of Moon in a lot of decks now because of link monsters, but you target 1 face-up monster on the field, change that target to face-down defense position. It doesn't have to be your opponent's monsters. Your big plays with this are to flip down your own penguins to reuse as well after you flip them up. Let's say if you flip them down again, then you just have that option to bounce more and more cards on your field. With Note Penguin having that banish power, it makes it all the scarier as well, especially if your opponent is going to attack into it and then just go for that power. Another one I like to rely on is Book of Eclipse. Now, this one, I was thinking of either this or Water Hazard in the deck, but it could be player preference at that point, which one you want to run. But this one works more for just changing all face-up monsters on the field to face-down defense position during the end phase of this turn. Change as many face-down defense position monsters you control as possible to face-up defense position. Then your opponent draws cards equal to the number of monsters changed face-up. Now, the draw power doesn't really matter as much. This is just for setup with that monster. So if you flip down your own monsters and then flip them up with some of your other means, you have more options to return cards and banish cards on your opponent's field. So Book of Eclipse and Book of Moon work very, very well together to at least keep your penguins, from flipping and then being able to use their effects over and over again. And since we're running a good amount of aqua monsters, I'm also running 3 surface. You target 1 level 3 or lower fish, sea serpent, or aqua type monster in your graveyard, special summon it in face-up defense position. That could just be the one monster we need to tribute out to summon the Great Emperor Penguin for that play. So having that resource and 3 surface, as long as we have that setup to go for, makes it very useful for sure. And we have plenty of penguin targets to go for, whether it be Penguin Torpedo, Penguin Soldier, Note Penguin, you name it. Note Penguin's probably my favorite, as long as we have the other cards already on the field to go. If we need some more draw power in the deck for some specific cards, I run 2 Moray of Greed. You shuffle 2 water monsters from your hand into the deck, then draw 3 cards. The penguins are all water, so you should always have the option to shuffle back 2 monsters and hopefully get some better useful cards if your hand's not looking so good. With this card, I thought of surface, but we just have too many strong penguins that don't have the requirement for surface to add cards back to hand in this deck. Yes, Puny Penguin and Penguin Soldier fit for that, but Note Penguin and also just some of our other ones like the Great Emperor Penguin just can't be recycled as easily. That's why I decided to stick with Moray of Greed and not surface in this deck. for some of the one-ofs, I run 1 Foolish Burial and 1 Monster Reborn just for the graveyard setup, especially with some of our other cards. With this card like Note Penguin, just easy setup in the graveyard, and then more resources to summon back onto the field as well, like the Great Emperor Penguin. This card doesn't have to be tributed, so if you just special summon it with Monster Reborn, then you just tribute it like that, you get 2 more penguins on the field. And I also run 3 Call by the Grave. I just don't want my opponent to hand trap my monsters on the field, especially Effect Veiler stopping the flip effects. That could definitely hurt for sure, so Call by the Grave helps to stop those hand trap plays. And that is it for the spells. When I move on to the traps, just a little more monster bounce compulsory definitely helps if my opponent gets out a monster that stops monster effects, because if I lose that, then the deck has no power to counteract that. So 2 compulsory at least means I can have other options if my opponent stops my monsters to bounce that pesky monster back to their hand. And also I run 2 back to the front just for another option for special summoning resources onto the field. You're not limited with the levels, and once again, a great special summon target for the Great Emperor Penguin onto the field. And that is it for the main deck. We'll now move on to the extra deck. I run 2 Miss Starboy. The majority are water monsters, so just being able to boost up their attack and defense makes it all the better with this card. Then being able to add 1 back to the graveyard after this card is sent makes it a true staple for the Penguin deck and the setup. The same with Area, the Water Charmer, Gentle. More if I can take my opponent's water resources, but just a good link to monster to have to rely on that special summon option also. I also run 1 Cross Sheep, 1 Underclock Taker, 1 Nightmare Cerberus, 1 Nightmare Phoenix, 1 Nightmare Unicorn, 1 Triple Burst Dragon, and 1 Borreload, just for the extra link options when I can go into them. They help being that option available to me. For the Synchro monsters, I'm running 1 Glacial Beast, Iceberg Narwhal. It's a level 7 monster, but still very useful when I can make this card with Glacial Penguin being a level 3 tuner to rely on. It just makes for a good play to go into. And I also run 1 Crystron Amatrix, 1 Gungnir Dragon of the Ice Barrier, 1 DeLorean. If you don't want to run DeLorean, this can also be a Bryonic spot as well, just for more of the bounce plays for your opponent. And also 1 Nightmare Shark for the rank 3 plays when you can make it, being a water monster to help with that also. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoy the video. Once again, the main go-to play is just the flip setup and setting up plenty of your penguins on the field. So if you go for the surface play to summon out 1 of your level 3 penguins onto the field, you can then use that setup to tribute summon out your Great Emperor Penguin, and then use that tribute, because this card doesn't have any specifications, except for you can tribute this card to special summon 2 penguin monsters from your deck, except for the Great Emperor Penguin, going for Note Penguin, and then also just setting up, let's say, Penguin Soldier, if you have the Book of Eclipse play or Book of Moon play, to flip down, if it's Book of Moon, just the Penguin Soldier, but Book of Eclipse will flip both of these up at the end of the turn, so you'll have the bounce effect with Penguin Soldier, and then the banish extra effect with your Note Penguin on the field. And then with the additional add-back plays with your Glacial Beast Polar Penguin, when it's special summon, getting that additional effect when you use it with Surface. If it's special summon, being able to target 1 monster your opponent controls and return it to the hand is just an added bonus for that bounce already before you even go for the Great Emperor Penguin play. And then having that destruction effect, having that additional bounce makes it all the better. So if you don't have the tribute, you still have that to rely on. But setting up more and more penguins means this deck is definitely more of a defensive play style. But with Penguin Torpedo, you have more of an offensive play to take your opponent's resources to rely on also. And I can't wait till we get the new support later on this year. It's definitely going to make for that much scarier of a deck. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And Kira Twig out.